Okay, so now in doing prayers, it's really important that it's not just sort of like, oh, I've memorized that, I can go blah, 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 and it's all done. It's important that we do them within a context, like we're actually doing something with ourselves. And I mean, I'm not saying that we don't, but it's sometimes if we do something regularly, it loses a bit of its flavor. And so we want to make sure that we don't do that. So one is, of course, in front of us, we should feel that there's Buddha Shakyamuni. I mean, whether it's, you can just feel it like they're sitting on a chair off in the one corner of your room or something like that, and then you go, oh, I always like to think it's the Dalai Lama. Like when I do my prayers, I feel the Dalai Lama's in front of me, and then I sit a little straighter and things like that. So that's the object. Inspiration, the Dharma is the actual refuge, and the Sangha is our friends. And then to make it that it's not just about me, bring to mind someone that we love, and it could be just one person. Trichin Rinpoche, one of the Dalai Lama's tutors, said that. He said, just bring to mind, one or two people, but someone that you have a feeling for, and so that person comes to mind. And if even, so whether it's a mother, father, brother, sister, niece, nephew, grandchild, even a pet, actually would work because it's a sentient being. And then you say, well, like I want to offer a more enlightened relationship for that person, for those people. And because there's a feeling of love, and then there's the motive, and that's why I'm attending this class, it's you really are accumulating some very distinct karma, because you have to really say, universal sentient beings is pretty big. And I don't know if our mind can really encompass that. We can have a very sort of universal idea. That's good. I'm certainly not saying it's not, but it's sometimes good to touch on some very personal emotions and then bring them into the path of enlightenment. So anyway, with that thought in mind, I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit transmigratory beings. I take refuge until I am enlightened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits of generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha and benefit transmigratory beings. And the mandala. Okay, go back. Yeah, prostrate. Okay, so we do 7 limb prayers. Good. I prostrate reverently to the body, speech, and mind. I present clouds of every type of offering, actually arranged and mentally emanated. I confess all my negative actions and downfalls collected from beginningless time. I rejoice in the virtues of all ordinary beings and areas. Please remain until the end of cyclic existence and turn the wheel of Dharma for transitory beings. I dedicate my own and other virtues to great enlightenment. Okay, well, that's good. That's good. We don't need to do mandala. Okay, so the we're talking about how to meditate, and so there's some very fantastic techniques within the tradition, but I want to talk about some things because most of us are beginners and we're a little bit busy, and then maybe we have a fair number of sadhanas and mantras that we have to recite. So it can be that we consider, that's meditation, but it's rather active. And are we really getting at peace with ourselves? So I'll start off with a story that back in 1971, when I first was in India, and then when I became a monk, and in 72 and 73 and 74, one of the big other draws, other than Dharamsala with the Tibetan library, was Goenka. And Goenka was, doing things down in towards Bombay and was being very successful and such. And so those people sometimes would come up to Dharamsala when it was, I guess, the rainy season or something like that. Although it's actually not the best time to be in Dharamsala. But anyway, they'd come up, maybe spring and fall, which would be drier times, okay? And they would be, rent houses and stuff. And so I was a monk and I was doing the Tibetan thing, I think at that point I'd done my first 100,000 prostrations and a few other things like that, very sort of, very active, and bodhisattvas and attending teachings with Geshe Darge and Geshe Rapton actually, and then I'd look at the Vipassana people and they were so calm. And we Tibetan practitioners were all hyper. I'm serious. I mean, maybe some of you are pretty laid back, but the thing is, most of us were really hyper, and they were really calm. And I went like, wow. And then the big thing happened was that the Dalai Lama invited Goenka up to Dharamsala, and they had an audience. And the Dalai Lama, tried to establish a good friendship with him. And so he said, I would like you to lead a 10-day Goenka Vipassana course in our Tibetan library. And, and with the monks of the dialectic school. Now, I don't remember what year that was. It would have been maybe 1973 or 74 or something like that. Anyway, and so I guess the 60 or 70 monks from the dialectic school attended, and Goenka and his wife sat up on the throne or up on the platform in front of us, which is sort of interesting, Anyway, and she seemed just to sleep mostly. I mean, maybe she was meditating deeply. I don't know, but she would do that. But Goenka would do verbal presentation, because nowadays, if you do a Goenka course, it's just sort of his videos, and and all is anicca and dukkha and anicca, dukkha, and I can't remember the other word. Anyway, so there's a technique. It's very good. I mean, I've done 2 Goenka courses. The first one I did was there in India with Goenka. And the second one I did actually in Canada, which I'll talk about in a sec. But it was at the end of the 10 days, I was just sitting there like, God, I'm so intellectual. And the course with Goenka had grounded me massively, because you do 2 or 3 days of just breathing meditation, and then you start scanning your body, and everything is anicca, impermanence, and then then you recognize the different states of mind, which are dukkha and anatma. That was like not self-existent, or without not self-existent. So the course was incredible. It really affected me, and I thought, wow, I'm just so intellectual. And that's part of the reason that I was saying that the Goenka people, the students, over years, you could say, got in touch with themselves and slowed down really a lot faster than we Tibetans did. But the sort of, you could say, saving grace was that at a certain point, though, they didn't have enough teachings. And that's where Tibetan Buddhism comes in, with a huge wealth of psychological techniques. I mean, incredible. I mean, Tibetan Buddhism is wonderful, and so there's these great presentations. And so as time passed, a lot of the Goenka people would then come and attend Tibetan Buddhism, or what it was Mahayana Buddhism, really, and that way they would then, have a lot more technique, because in the Goenka tradition, there wasn't a lot of instruction. I mean, there was, but it wasn't very elaborate, whereas the Tibetan system or Mahayana Buddhism has that. So that was the first thing that I wanted to share, was that although, our culture is very wired, I mean, and throw in cell phones nowadays, and we're even more wired, I mean, and stuff. So the thing is that the breathing style of meditation is so beneficial. So it was interesting as I was sitting here saying, okay, what are we going to talk about tonight? As part of the thing. Well, okay, I realized, well, I've got techniques to share, and I will share them. But the big thing I realized was to say, okay, I went to my breathing meditation, because I'd been doing that a lot. And immediately I could feel like my chest would go like down. And I said, oh, I have a nice sensation of peace right now. And then you have this, you do have a sort of a consistency when you develop breathing meditation. It sort of suddenly arises. Last week, I mean, I only taught for 40 minutes. I'm sorry, but, I talked about like, when you do start to develop shamatha or shine or mindfulness, whatever word you care to use, it's like you have a river and the top part of it starts to freeze and become stable. And that's sort of your mindfulness. But underneath, there's this current. And it's like, I mean, with a frozen river, underneath the frozen river, there is a current running. And that's the little discursive thoughts that still carry on. But the better you get to be meditator, the more deeper the ice gets, and then the more you have stability, and then the little discursive thoughts are not a distraction anymore. They don't get any more fuel to because you don't pursue whatever thought or feeling came up with some sort of elaboration. So my point being is that when you develop breathing meditation, it's not something that's unrelated to your body the sensations, and the sensations, those two things really. So what you're saying, I would like to recommend that at least part of your repertoire, because for example, I start off, I do 6-session guru yoga, I then do white Tara, I then do 21 Vajra or Haruka Vajrasattva, I then go in and do the Miksema mantra, Gadan Lagyama, the 100 gods of Tushita, 100 of that, 1 mala of that. Then I flip over and I do 4 malas of Tara, and I do 1 mala of Avalokiteshvara, and then I go into doing some higher tantra, Guhya Samaja, and Vajrayogini. So whoa, and I do those every day. But I do try to do mindfulness because it's just such a grounding practice. And all those other ones are wonderful, and they're even better when you have mindfulness. Okay. Now, you might say, but I can do mindfulness through these practices. Well, yeah. But the thing that I'm getting at is this, that if you were to sit down right now and you take a comfortable posture and you're being attentive to what's going on, and you've been developing some breathing meditation, when you bring your attention, and it's the movement of the chest, it's not up in the nose, okay? In the psychological research, they found that's better, okay? And I'll give some commentary in a second. But so you move your attention to the movement of your chest, and maybe it takes a second or two, and you should feel a settling because you've got some familiarity with it. And then so you're sort of more at peace with yourself. And then, like I was explaining with like the frozen rivers, is that you do get this sort of like, oh, it's a state of consciousness, but it is a sensation in consciousness of stability. And it doesn't matter that you inhale or exhale. That's not the focus anymore. You have this sensation that your consciousness goes on. And that's, that would develop into focusing on your mind alone. But for starters, it starts off with just, okay, breathing. And as you develop a little bit of peace, a little bit of focus, it turns into this sensation that then you really don't lose as you are breathing. And it is tied a bit with your breathing. That didn't stop. But you might say the mind got focused enough that it could shift off the inhale, exhale to this sensation, which then you could say is almost like a motor. The breathing is like the motor, but the sensation is what your mind can focus on. And then, as I just said way back, I think in the first class, is that if you do that, you can actually lose, your body is still in breathing mode. It's natural breathing. It had to stop, and it's nice and relaxed. That's the first step. The second thing is you've got then sensation, and then you can shift over just to consciousness, which is more subtle. So there is these progressions, and they're perfectly natural. There's nothing especially, psychic or magical or anything about it, but it's your mindfulness. So my point is, when I started, was to say that, okay, if you develop it, because of our culture and the environment and all the stimulation and agitation, it's a really worthwhile one because it's including your body. It's including the sensation of being at peace in your body. And it automatically gives you something that your mind focuses on, which isn't being caught up with all of the activity going on around you, which is breathing, which is always happening. Now, you might say, gee, Jhampa, I don't quite know. Well, you've got to practice a little while to get it happening, okay? And that basically is pretty much what the Goenka tradition does. And so I'm not saying that they're the thing we want. In fact, they're a little bit sectarian, which I was going to just mention. And I'm not complaining about them. It just depends on the politics. But I attended one of the retreats, this in Canada, and I had a great time. 10 days in silence, and the room was all darkened off, and I really got some great focus, And so at the end of it, I was just bliss. I was just so happy. I had a great retreat, and I enjoyed listening to Goenka doing his, anicca, dukkha, and atma commentary and stuff like that. And everybody was very quiet. And actually, when I go to bed, I'd be in my sleeping bag, in the bed, and they were quite nice to me because I was about 60, 65, I guess, or something when I did that retreat. Anyway, I was one of the older people, so they gave me a private, well, not totally private, but quite a private room. So underneath the covers, I'd do my prayers with my mala, because you weren't supposed to do that, but I didn't want to break my commitments. So I just did it quietly by myself and when I went to bed. But anyway, back to the thing though, at the end of it, I went up to the teacher. He was a nice Canadian guy. And I said, thank you. This is the greatest retreat. I really, really enjoyed it. And he looked at me and he said, and totally deadpan, he said, well, that's very good, but you can't attend any more of these because you do other practices. And that wasn't because they knew that I'd been doing my mantras. No, but he come to realize that I was a Tibetan Buddhist and I wasn't allowed to continue to do their technique. And I went like, whoa, so silly, I thought, well, so I think I just said to him, well, that was really interesting. Thank you. Because I didn't want to ruin my feeling. But anyway, like I say, every religion has its stuff, whether it's politics or whether it's sectarianism or whatever. So, hey, that's not what we want. We want to become bodhisattvas who work for the benefit of sentient beings and stuff. Anyway, so I was just sharing that the technique is very good. If you attend, they will ask you not to do your Tibetan Mahayana practices. If you can they'll let you do one retreat to sort of taste it. But then they'll say you can't do another one unless you give up all your other things, which is sort of a bit silly. Anyway, so the good retreats. Now, coming back to what I was trying to talk about, that if you then, you position yourself fairly well, you shift your mind to the breathing and the movement of the chest, then you should feel like, oh, I'm getting peaceful because you developed that cognition with your breathing meditation. Relax. It's such an incredible technique, so you do that, and then you can shift over and you might get then that sensation I mentioned that, sort of like you have this consistency there, that thing. And one thing that you should understand is that the definition of concentration, which sort of sounds like you furrow your brow and you get all uptight and sort of like, yes, and we want to be alert, but we don't that. What the actual meaning is, the length of time you can hold mindfulness. That's what concentration is. So when we're beginners, we have very short lengths of time of being mindful, and then we think about something, and then we get mindful, and we think about something. But when you develop your mindfulness, then you start getting long, 1 minute, 2 minutes, and sometimes you're pretty good. Maybe you do a bit of a retreat, you get up to 5-10 minutes, maybe in 20 minutes, you can do it. But that's what's called, that is concentration. A non-breaking or a continuity of the mindfulness. Okay, so it's just little things. Now, in that, then you do need to be alert. Other things, the two main things, memory and alert, which come out of the Shine Shamatha instructions with the 9 steps of Shine. But my emphasis, I have 4 classes with you, and this is the 3rd one, is I want to come back to a really practical technique, which then you can take to all those other ones. Like, for example, let's say if you did develop, okay, I've got mindfulness, I've got a sense of peace in my body, okay, I've got my natural breathing, and then I start to get this sensation arises. It's just my mind can have it, it can hold that. And then you can turn that into love or compassion. Or, as I described earlier, a wisdom meditation. I'm immersed in the atmosphere. I'm not I'm a fish in water, but my medium is thin. It's the atmosphere, and I move my hands. I can feel the air running around and past my thing, and that air is under my, between my toes and my back and in my front. I'm immersed. It's like I went down to the bottom of a swimming pool. Well, right now, that's exactly what you are. You're at the sitting on the floor on a chair or whatever, in a room full of air. It's like a swimming pool. Okay, so that's like, okay, I am interdependent. But then breathe, inhale. Okay, and that's penetrating me. Every cell in my body is living off of that breath I took with the oxygen and the nitrogen and all the other sort of little factors that sort of create atmosphere. Okay, and so now I can sit there and say, I am immersed and penetrated, completely empty of any self-existence. Because you could say being empty or void, but this is too narrow. You should say empty or void of self-existence, open like the space of the sky. Then the other side of that is I'm interdependent, completely empty of any independent self-existence. Okay, so that's breathing meditation. You didn't have to go anywhere. You didn't have to think about it anywhere. You had to be intelligent, but you just had to recognize the entity of me is empty of any independent self-existence. And although there are the meditations of analysis where you appreciate like my sense of self, the name I have or whatever is not independently self-existent. The meditation of this breathing meditation of I'm immersed and penetrated, you might say, pulls the carpet out from underneath a very exaggerated intellectualization or over-identification of phenomena, isolation of phenomena, making the phenomena independently self-existent. I appreciate, no, it's all a vast ocean of interdependence. My body is involved in that. So anyway, that's just a breathing meditation, you see? So off of breathing meditation, you can shift into so many things. And then, I mean, if you did do a deity practice, okay, then, you are in touch with your body because of your mindfulness. And so, I mean, it is that you rely on your body when you do a deity meditation. It's not like you're visualizing or imagining something over here. No, it's your body is Avalokiteshvara. Your body is Tara. Your body is Manjushri, or the higher deities as you wish. Okay, so again, I'm just really trying to put a lot of clarity, and partly because of our culture, very agitated, busy, calm down. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk about for first. Okay, so that concludes that. Now, we're going to do a meditation, okay, and it's just mindfulness of breathing. Okay, so take a comfortable posture. I'm older now. I can't sit cross-legged anymore without causing some pain, although I could do it if I had nice enough cushions. So I sit in a chair, which I was pleased if you like to sit in a chair. See, I got a swivel chair too. I sometimes meditate in my lazy boy, which is really nice, but got to be careful. You get too relaxed. Okay, so sitting comfortably. Spine erect. The main reason for the spine erect is that your diaphragm and your ribs and such can all move freely without being compressed. Because remember, if you sit down like this, all of a sudden the ribs can't move very much, diaphragm can't move very much, and you're only getting 70% of your oxygen or what you need. Sit upright. You might get up to 85 or 90, depending on your breathing. But if you want just a natural breathing, and you say down to the diaphragm. So again, you don't need to focus on that, but just when you inhale, that you feel the diaphragm pull down and out. That's the movement that guarantees that the diaphragm is like that, a bellows. So that's the movement of my elbow down here is the abdomen. So it goes down and out, and that pulls the air into your body. And the ribs basically expand and contract. So you want them to be nice and well positioned. Your lungs are just like, your ribs, the muscles, the ribs, and your spine are like a coat hanger. And inside of that coat hanger are your two lungs, which have absolutely no physical capacity whatsoever to support themselves. So your body is the coat hanger of your lungs. So for example, if you had a long coat and you put it in a closet that's low, then the bottom part of the coat gets all shoved up. Well, that's equivalent to what you do when you slump. Whereas if you sit upright, it's like the coat gets to hang fully down and properly, so it doesn't get creases and wrinkles. So the same thing, sit upright, not extreme, but upright, so your diaphragm and ribs can move without any complication. Head's just a little forward because it balances. It weighs about 10 kilos or 20 pounds or something. I should look that up one day on Google, but just sort of say it's quite heavy actually. Tongue at the roof of your mouth, or whatever is comfortable. Breathe through the nose unless it's difficult. Hands on your lap or on your knees as you wish. Again, thumbs touching if they're on your lap. Thumb and first finger touching if they're on your knees or thighs. So take a posture, okay, and then we can check up a little bit. Just move your body just a teeny bit to say, okay, hey, I'm feeling pretty comfortable. And then one big breath, because that helps drop any emotions you might have carried to the moment. Okay, like that, just gets rid of any emotions or feelings that might have been trapped a little bit. And then as your body, then recognize, okay, body is comfortable, it's relaxed. Because later, when you develop good mindfulness with this, it means your body will automatically shift into being relaxed when you bring your awareness to your breathing, because it was part of the package. So Shifting your breathing, or shifting your attention now to the movement of your chest. And the simple technique for right now is just that if you see start thinking about something, to say, now's my time for meditation. And just sort of come back to whatever your breathing is doing. That's the simplest technique, but it's very effective. Now's my time for meditation. Now, although I don't mean to continue to talk, but when we took refuge, remember, we did have a motivation to do this we're doing this to be able to offer a more enlightened relationship to people we love. So we have a good motivation, a nice feeling of love. And I'm doing something positive, constructive that I can offer to that person. That makes me feel good. So there's your motive. But anyway, continue with our breathing. Please continue to meditate. Now, there are 4 steps that I saw from Thich Nhat Hanh, which were really nice about basic mindfulness meditation. And the 4 steps are first just, okay, I appreciate, I recognize I'm inhaling, exhaling. Your attention is on, oh, it's an inhalation, oh, it's an exhalation. You don't elaborate, it's just a cognition. But the second step is to bring awareness to the full experience of an inhalation or an exhalation. So your mind has a larger object, a more encompassing object to be aware of. The full sensation of an inhalation, the full sensation of an exhalation. Please do that for a moment or two. Then the third step is to just you expand the awareness to just be aware of the body a little bit more. So 80% of your mind is on the full experience of an inhalation, exhalation. 20% just starts to include the chest, the muscles, the things, but with the sensation of being very peaceful with that. That's the third step. It's a slightly broader state of consciousness with mindfulness on breathing. Then the fourth step is I inhale peace, I exhale peace. It's based on the 3 previous steps. A sensation, a cognition, I inhale peacefulness, I exhale peacefulness. And we can bring our attention to our breathing and close our meditation with a happy thought. By my effort of doing this short session, I dedicated to becoming more enlightened, to be able to offer that for the benefit of all. So, now I don't, know what your individual experiences were, and I'm going to open it to questions and chatting a little bit in a second. That particular 4 points of Thich Nhat Hanh do come straight from the Buddhist sutras, so it's not something that was made up, and I can't quote the exact name of the sutra, but it was from that. It's mostly a Satipatthana sutra or something like that, one of those ones. But the technique's very good because, as I said, later, maybe 5 months, a year, 5 years from now, when you're actually doing your meditation, or think, you'll be able to say, okay, body's erect, move thing, and then all of a sudden your body just goes, oh, because you have familiarity with relaxing. And that is not a like, oh, I'm relaxed like that. No, it's relaxing with mindfulness. Now, remember I said to you that there's like the frozen river feeling, that like there's this sort of consistency, stability. What you actually find, because, okay, when you're meditating, your meditation is this, it's down in the palm of your hand. Remember I gave you the example of your 5 fingers are the 5 senses. The palm of your hand is your mind. It's all of you, your personality, all of the factors of you. And if you wanted to make it sort of like it for a low-rate thing, this side is consciousness, this side is knowing. So consciousness is just the energy of your eye being able to see something and transmit it to the brain, and the brain doing it. That's the energy side. And that's clear. Because remember, your eye, which is a form, can talk to the brain. But so it has to be a clear energy, because your ear can hear a sound and communicate it with the brain. So it has to be also a clear energy. So that's the clear side, the energy side of you, who you are. The knowing side is the experiential side, like how you know yourself. And that's created from the experiences you have, and also a little bit by the philosophy you have and things like that. So there's the knowing side and the clear side, but they're one object. I'm sure if you've done some study of Buddhism and the nature of the mind, the mind is clear and knowing. Okay, that's the way they refer to it. So clear, knowing, one object, and the 5 senses, and all of your personality. And then I just add in there, the base of your hand is your Buddha nature, your most subtle mind. So coarse mind is the 5 fingers, subtle mind, and it's called subtle because you can't see it. Easily, like if I look at one of you, I don't know what you're thinking about. That's why it's subtle. So that's that, and that's all your personality. And in the base of your hand, that's your Buddha nature. That's the most subtle, subtle, coarse. Okay. Now, when you meditate, you're taking one of the sense doors, sensation. Now, you're saying breathing, but what you're focused on is the sensation of that, okay? The other 3 or 4, you don't want to hear too much, you don't want to look at too much, you don't want to smell, and you don't want to taste. You want to get your mind focused. So breathing meditation is off of sensation. So if you're sitting there and you're meditating and you're doing breathing meditation, inhalation and exhalation, with sensitivity, you start to get the sensation of the movement of the lungs and the ribs and such like that. And your mind can shift to that because it's a consistent thing. It's the same thing when you do it on your nose. This is straight out of Goenka technique, and I don't know if any of the Tibetans teach it, but you normally focus on the air moving through the nostril, and then you get a sensation, and then you focus on the sensation, which is part of the nervous system, and then you can progress otherwise. But what we're doing is it with our chest, because it keeps it more in our body. It's down in our body. Okay, so you start to get the sensations, and then your mind can shift to that, and it has a consistency. It's got longer term. It's not like inhale, exhale. It's more, okay, I am inhaling, I'm exhaling, but I got a sensation there, and your mind can focus on that. And as I said, if you start to get more deep in that, you actually can shift over to conscious energy, which is sensation really, actually. And then finally the mind itself. But anyway, that's down the road. So that's the just sort of to give you a bit of an understanding about things, okay? And just to carry on the mind in your hand, this is sort of the way I call it, the mind in your hand. 5 senses, all of your personality, which is subtle, and then the very subtle is your Buddha nature, the clear light, okay? And one side is knowing and the other side is clear light energy, okay? Now, most of us, our personality is very extroverted and sort of, we believe in this and that, and we have all sorts of, different delusions and things like that. That's our normal mind. But if you, for example, look at like the wisdoms, okay, the first wisdom is everything's impermanent. So if your mind appreciates everything impermanent, it doesn't get quite as stuck on stuff like attached and things, okay? So you think about that and you start to say, okay, I've got my breathing meditation, it's always changing. But then everything's got a continuity. That's karma, or cause and effect, cause and circumstance. So if something's happening, it has some causes and circumstances. It's like if you're sitting right there right now and suddenly you get an itch somewhere in your body, maybe it's because a mosquito bit you or something. But there's a cause and a circumstance and an effect. So karma is that. So again, as you know that, then when something happens in your life, something about your personality, you're finding yourself getting agitated or angry. It's not like, why me? Why do I have these feelings? No, there's some causes and circumstances why you have a lot of attachment or a lot of anger or you're lazy or something like that. There's all sorts of causes and circumstances. So it's an understanding. It's a wisdom consciousness. Impermanence is a wisdom consciousness. Understanding the continuity of causes and circumstances. Karma is a wisdom consciousness. It's an understanding. Then you move over to that I am interdependent. I'm not self-existent. That's an understanding. Okay, so I am immersed in the ocean of atmosphere. I am inhaling it. It's penetrating me. It's giving me life. So that's again a wisdom understanding. And so then you can say that I am not independently self-existent. So it's a different perspective on the same thing. I am 100% interdependent. Every cell in my body is interdependent with the other cells and the other phenomena. Okay, so then you say, okay, I am completely 100% interdependent. I am empty of any independent self-existence. Okay, now what have you done is you've allowed yourself, because you're a meditator and you have these wisdom understandings, to go a deeper and deeper level of conscious experience. You are able to, because normally it's like, am I making enough money? It's pretty cold outside. I better turn the heat up. Where our mind is so externalized and stuff, and it's very hard to sort of relax and let go and go inside. But you can say, no, everything's impermanent. Relax. Actually, Lama Yeshe referred to it. He said the definition of nirvana is peace or calm. So what's the opposite of that? Well, it's referred to as the intensity, the fire of delusions. Your anger burns you. In fact, one of the first sutras the Buddha taught was called the Fire Sutra. And it was about that, your eyes see something and they have attachment, you get burned. Your ears hear sound and you get attachment, you get burned. Or maybe your ears hear a sound and you get angry, you get burned. So it's like that. So that's where our consciousness is continually attacked and burned because of our ignorance. Or our misunderstanding. But if we develop a wisdom consciousness, a understanding, okay, things are always changing. Let go. Don't be so uptight. If something's happening, it's got a cause and circumstance. It's not arbitrary. It's not done by God or something like that. It's, hey, there's some causes and circumstances. Relax, okay? Create new causes and circumstances. Oh, why? Well, because it's all a grand play of interdependence, So inhale, okay, yeah, I got it. Okay, I'm interdependent. I'm not independently self-existent. So with those wisdom understandings, you become very peaceful, not on fire with your attachments and your aversions and your misunderstandings, so to speak. And then that allows you to get deeper and deeper in your meditation to go down to clear light consciousness, because you're not so extroverted and so external. You've got a wisdom consciousness. And that's the whole point, is that, there can be people that are meditators that attain clear light experience. Actually, I think it's that William or Blake, somebody, the great poet Blake, I believe, he had the ability that he said, on occasions he would be, writing a poem and he'd pause for a moment. And then he said this sort of sensation of depth would come into him. And then he said he noticed his breathing would almost stop, and he'd go to this experience of light. And for him, it was God. That's what he experienced, like had this experience of God. So no more breathing, experience of light and God. And then he'd come out of it, and then he'd write, and was it Tiger Shining Bright or something? One of those Blake poems or whatever. So the point is that that you can have experiences, and people for their karma or whatever have them. But the question is how you interpret it. So we're a Buddhist, so we interpret things as wisdom consciousness, that everything's changing, has a continuity of causes and circumstances, it's all interdependent, it's empty of any independent self-existence. And with that, then you can get very relaxed and go into a very deep state, because it's not me independently self-existent meditating, it's me, this open entity and such like that. Anyway, just again, it's all breathing meditation with understanding, with a wisdom consciousness. So just something to share, keep you entertained as you listen to this. So anyway, we're talking about meditation. And I know that maybe you're thinking, gee, I remember when I was first, Losang said, talk about, falling asleep or getting too agitated and stuff. I think that we really need to have a big excitement about why our meditation is so important. Why it is so beneficial to my very state of being, mindfulness meditation, being here and being present, and not on some fantastic thing, but just on being here and breathing and being peaceful. And then within that, having spiritual determination. Things are impermanent. Why would I want to get so uptight and obsessive about stuff? And if something's happening, it has causes and circumstances. So let me make some good causes and circumstances. Bodhicitta. So it's all understandings coming from a nice peaceful place where you have a good sense of personal self-security and such, and then feeling, okay, well, I'm interdependent. Like I'm like a stick of incense burning, and the perfume I make is, may I make the world a better place. So just, whatever, the incense doesn't make a big determination to go here or there. It just is beneficial. It's this nice fragrance. So may my existence be of benefit to all sentient beings. Whoever sentient being happens to be in front of me, may I be in an appropriate manner beneficial. Okay, we always have to be intelligent about our compassion, but like that. Okay. Anyway, so that's a breathing meditation and having a really good why. Like, why the heck do I want to meditate and such? Then in that, then you can do Om Mani Padme Hums and other things. But last week again, or 2 weeks ago, I think I talked about the thing is, like, if you're going to do a Buddha meditation, like Buddha in front of you, then, make your, okay. And I use the example, like you're in Bodh Gaya. Okay. So if you've ever been there, okay, maybe you haven't, but let's just use that as an example. So there's this beautiful, huge stupa in front of you. So you have to imagine you are there. Okay. That you are at Bodh Gaya, but you're seated in a nice cushion in front of the Bodhi tree, maybe 5-10 yards away from the Bodhi tree, there, and you got the big stupa. By just doing that, you've already invoked all sorts of very nice feelings, spirituality, life is meaningful, may I be of benefit, things like that, just by that thing, because you're in Bodh Gaya. Then in front of the Bodhi tree, or just underneath the Bodhi tree, but a little bit closer to you, then you have a little throne. You can put lions and stuff on it, it's all symbolic, but bottom line is you want to have the Buddha sitting there. And you can make the Buddha is the Dalai Lama, so it has more feeling for you. Where's Lama Zopa Rinpoche? Whatever, but in the form of the Buddha, because that makes it again more feeling, more connected to it. Okay, and then you have him that he's looking at you and he's smiling, but not excessively, but but he's looking at you with a wisdom, love, and compassion and smiling. But you are sitting there. You've included yourself in the imagination. Now, again, if we follow the teachings properly, we would have done that. But so often we do sort of like this, from 1 meter in front of or 1 yard in front of my forehead is a Buddha floating in space or something. No. Make yourself there, like you're sitting there. And if we have to say that around me is all sentient beings, my mother and my father, my right and left side, my family is behind me, my people that are difficult for me in front of me. Okay, that you're getting a little bit complicated with your meditation, but you could just say, that wherever they are, they're not like right there, but I feel that they're there, so it's just a feeling. And then you continue with like, I'm sitting there, the Buddha, Dalai Lama is looking at me warmly. I'm sitting in a good posture, and then I do Tayata Om or Tayata Om Muni Muni Ma Muni Soha, something like that, and you feel your body is touching the light. So it says, wait, but you've included yourself in the visualization in a very special place, which has invoked a lot of very good feelings. That's all really good visualization meditation. And if you wanted to turn yourself into Avalokiteshvara Tara, same thing though, but you put yourself somewhere special, put yourself in Bodh Gaya or some holy place that really works for you, and then you are there. You've invoked that. You've invoked all that that means for you. And then you become Avalokiteshvara Tara and such. And then it is your body. And again, if you've been doing breathing meditations, you've got a good connection with your body. Again, it's not sort of like, anyway, it's that. So I'm just trying to really emphasize breathing meditation is just so good, and you want to be really excited about it. And it doesn't exclude anything else. In fact, once you get it down a little bit, everything else is nicely included in that. Okay. So now I was gotten a bit of a rave there, didn't I? Opening it to questions and answers. Is there any questions and answer or questions, commentaries? Please. And I will wait.
I have a question about what do you recommend if we have trouble shifting items of visualization? Like I visualize something, let's say like my parents, and then the person who's bringing me trouble. Like I kind of lose sense of that proximity when I have to change to that other visualization.
Okay, wait, so you're talking about you're doing an imagination of, for example, Buddha meditation, and you're having these people in your mind. Is that the way? Is that the basis?
Yes, something like that. Yes.
Well, again, how you say you have to look at the feelings that you're accumulating or that you're building up. So just my comment would first, I would just focus really on Buddha Shakyamuni, and that I feel a very good sense of his presence and, the appropriate sensations and feelings. And, you inspire me. I mean, it's not like we sit there and we're groveling or thing in front of the Buddha. No, we're inspired by the Buddha. Buddha was a sentient being just like me. He worked hard and became the Buddha. Wow, you were an inspiration for me. And part of that inspiration is his presence to me, like, wow, so peaceful, so wise, so loving, and so they like that. So those are the things. So you have those feelings coming up, okay? And you can dwell on them for a while like that. Then you can say, well, okay, thank you very much for my interdependence with my mom and dad. They gave me my body. So you don't, it is an appreciation, but again, it's a feeling, but it's still within that context of Buddha Shakyamuni is looking at me and stuff, and I'm getting good supportive energy from him, and then so you do that again. So you have shifted, but you haven't shifted away from, you might say, the core, you being devotional or inspired by Buddha Shakyamuni, so it's got a context for it. So then again, I mean, if you then bring, okay, well, I want to bring up something different, a different commentary, that when you do long retreats, and if you're fairly good at it, like, so I mean, like I did a 3-year retreat, I did 15 million mantras of Yamantaka, with the visualization of the mandala and all the other things that you're taught. And that took me 2 years to do that. And I did another year of completion stage practices. So, and I'm not saying, hey, I'm wonderful, but hey, I put my time in. So, so I did my work. So when you start to have better capacity at meditation, you can generate something and it stays there. You don't need to regenerate it. It's sort of radiating that energy. So mom and dad, I love you. May I help you become more enlightened? You can have that there. It's just that energy. And then there's the person in front of you and you can have them there. But again, they say, you're problematic, but may I help you become more enlightened? May I be at peace with the fact that you're obnoxious, whatever, I mean, making joking, but the thing is, so you can do that. And that's what you do when you build a mandala. Like, you have the different deities around you or whatever, you get the stability if I'm in the middle of the mandala, and then maybe, for example, if it's higher tantras, let's say you have a Heruka tantra and you've got the 4 dakinis and the 4 directions and stuff, you can hold you put yourself there, and you can have them that they're appearing there, and you don't think about them, they're just there because they're included in your imagination of that place. So those are the easy ones because it's all in the context of, I'm a Nirmanakaya or a Sambhogakaya working for the benefit of sentient beings. So that's much easier because it's got that sort of energy. It's your bodhicitta manifested for the benefit of sentient beings. When you're talking about the visualizations with Buddha Shakyamuni, and you have your mother and your father and people that are difficult and your relatives behind, and then all the other sentient beings, that's a very busy meditation. So I would think that you want to shift, but within the context, you always have sort of the core of it is, I'm in a relationship with Buddha Shakyamuni. Buddha worked hard over 3 countless eons to become the Buddha. He was a sentient being like me, and then became a bodhisattva that worked many, many millions of rebirths all the way up to finally becoming the Buddha. Wow, you're impressive. I really like you. And so that's the core. And then you don't really lose that, but you just sort of, okay, now my mom and dad are beside me. Okay, well, may I offer a more enlightened relationship? So it's got a context. Okay. And then this person in front of me is difficult. Well, you could then say, well, I've got some karma to work out. Like Buddha Shakyamuni worked out his karma in his different life situations that he had over 3 countless eons. Well, me too. See what I mean? So it's you've got to have some sort of a core, and then the other facets go into it. Okay. Is that reasonable? It's fine.
That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Other questions or thoughts or commentaries? Sheila, I've been practicing how to say your name because I'm in Mexico and XE doesn't come up as Shay, but okay, I'm memorized.
It's actually pronounced Shella, but I grew up here in Utah, and it's a lot easier for people to say Shayla. It's just, so I go by Shayla. So if you think the X is SH and then the Ella.
Okay, well, my second name is Shaneman, so I can do SH, Shayla. Hey, I got it. I've been given the transmission of your name. Good. Anyway, any questions, Sheila? You happy?
Absolutely. I've been using the technique of instead of the nose or the stomach, I can actually focus better with focusing on the chest. Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, actually, for me, I was at the nose, and then if you're a Zen meditator, you do the abdomen. But in the psychological research of students developing better mindfulness, they did say the chest seemed to be the best. So just to research, and then later you can shift it down to your diaphragm once you build up some good mindfulness. So yeah, good. So thank you. Good. And then Kathleen, any thoughts and commentaries?
I had good results with using saying to myself, this is my time for meditation. What you told us that last week. So when my mind started to wander, I would just bring it back with that. Yeah,
it's not so we don't we beat ourselves sometimes so much with I'm scattering, No, it's just to put it in a context. Well, I am meditating. I just got a little distracted. So it's my time for meditation. So yeah, it's very important how we cultivate ourselves. I think I might have mentioned some time ago that I had a fellow that had a business, and he said, Jhampa, when I meditate, all I do is I think about what my workmen are doing and how much money I have to pay them and how much I have to buy this and that supplies for the building project that we have. I can't meditate. And I said, what do you expect your meditation to be about? You're a businessman, so don't fight it, but just say, this is my time for meditation. So anyway, yeah, it's, whatever is going on in our life, whether it's a family situation or whether it's, money or health, okay, that's what's going to come up in our meditation. Let's be realistic about it. So just to say, okay, well, yeah, I can think about that later. I can think about I got to take my medicine, when I'm finished. Okay, good guys. So it's nice. I'm enjoying this, because anyway. It's what I like the most is, then I think I might have mentioned earlier that my beginning years in Buddhism was all based on faith. Like the Tibetan lamas and all of that is, wow, it's so good, things like that. No, the teachings were really, they grounded the faith. I mean, that's the one wonderful thing. I mean, isn't there, there's three types of faith, faith in admiration, faith by inspiration, and faith by knowing. And that's the one you want, that faith by knowing, which is, like nature of the mind, and then working with the mind, and the, mind training techniques and all of those things. Those create a very solid faith, which in the Tibetan word is actually called yiche, a confident mind, which is a little bit, they have depa, which is faith, but they also have yiche, which is a synonym, and it's a mind that has confidence. So that's, again, our studying is that we have a confident mind, we have faith. Anyway, so what I enjoy now is that, the last 10 years, all the research into mindfulness is going like, wow, I've been doing that for years, but it's just interesting. It's more knowledge, is more knowledgeable at what's going on. And I mean, the changes in the cells of the brain and all of that, that's so interesting, anyway, so I'm talking a bit too much, but hey, breathing meditation, very good. And there's lots of research on it, and it shows up lots of really good results. So yes. And then you can take that into all of our techniques. And bottom line, I mean, whenever it's all over, I mean, okay, breathing, I'm immersed and penetrated. I am completely 100% interdependent. I'm empty of any self-existence. That's a really nice, natural way to go and approach the voidness, of self-existence. And then Tonglen, I inhale the world around me and I exhale back, may I be of benefit. I inhale the people who are unhappy, I exhale, may they have happiness. It's all with the breathing meditation. So such a good technique. Okie dokie. So for me, it's 9 o'clock. For you, it's 8 o'clock. So anyway, 1 hour is pretty good. If we can carry on, but then it's sort of, I think all of us get tired, and that's not so beneficial. And it's Sunday night, so I think that's good enough for now. 1 hour, nice things to think about. I think it's okay. So any final comments or thoughts before we close? I'm sorry, my screen's down here, so there's a camera, but I have to look down here to see what you guys are doing and then look back up. Okay, well, big hugs, lots of love to you guys. Okay, so let's do dedication, but just remember, first off, think, okay, I made the time to show up at 7 o'clock and, in mountain time. And I sat here for 1 hour and I did some meditation and I thought about some things. I take all of that and I dedicate it to having a more enlightened life. And what's the meaning of my enlightened life is, may I be of benefit. And with that then, due to these merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme enlightened jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase evermore, more and more. And may Lama Zopa Rinpoche live a very, very long life and always be part with us and such. And of course, may the Dalai Lama be the same and live a very long life and such. And may the Buddha Dharma flourish and people become happy. And may the real meaning of the Buddha Dharma flourish, which is peace and love and compassion and wisdom. Okay. So thank you very, very much. Great to be with you all. And getting to know you slowly, which is nice. Even though we live in all over the universe and the world, we actually are getting in touch. So that's very nice. Okay, so